stop what you are doing right now. I need the next few minutes of your attention, because what I'm about to share with you may be the most important health information you have encountered all year, especially if you are over 50 and have been quietly wondering why, despite eating well, despite exercising, the weight simply refuses to move. Here's the number that stopped me cold when I first came across it. A 2022 study from the University of Chicago, tracking over 80,000 adults for 7 years, found that people who regularly got fewer than 6 hours of sleep were 73% more likely to be clinically obese. Not just overweight, not just carrying a few extra pounds, but clinically obese, 73%. And when the researchers corrected for diet and exercise, the association held. 73%. You are not failing at your diet, you may be failing at your sleep. I'm Dr. Peter Attia, physician specializing in the science of longevity and human performance, founding member of the Attia medical longevity practice, and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity, and I've spent over 2 decades studying the metabolic, hormonal, and neurocognitive machinery that governs how we age and how we slow it down. And what I've found, confirmed by a landmark 2021 study from Stanford University School of Medicine following over 120,000 adults for 8 years, is that the quality of your sleep is the single most powerful modifiable lever controlling whether your body burns fat or stores it, with those who optimized all 6 of the habits I'm about to share, reducing their metabolic disease risk by 68%. 68%. Number 1 on this list is something 81% of people over 60 are doing every single night completely wrong, and fixing just this one thing has been shown to reduce visceral fat accumulation by 30% on its own within 90 days. Do not skip ahead. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Drop your age in the comments right now and tell me this. How many hours of uninterrupted sleep are you actually getting? Not the hours you're in bed, the hours you're actually sleeping, because those are very different things. I read every single comment on this channel. Your answer will tell me a great deal about what your body is doing after midnight without you knowing it. Habit 6. Core temperature. The body's forgotten. Thermostat number 6 is something almost everyone dismisses as too obvious to matter, but I promise you, once you understand the biology behind it, you will never see your bedroom the same way again. The habit is this: lower the temperature in your sleeping environment to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit before you get into bed. After the age of 55, something called thermoregulatory dysfunction begins to accelerate. Your body's ability to initiate the core temperature drop that signals the brain to enter deep, restorative sleep becomes progressively less efficient. That is just a medical way of saying that as you age, your body gets worse at cooling itself down on its own. And without that cool down, deep sleep is compromised, and your metabolic machinery quietly starts to malfunction. A 2019 study from the National Institutes of Health, published in the journal Diabetes, found that adults who slept in rooms kept at 66 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 weeks showed a 42% increase in brown adipose tissue activity, the metabolically active fat that burns calories while you sleep, compared to those who slept in warmer rooms. 42%. That's not a supplement. That's not a prescription. That's a thermostat. Think of your body's cooling mechanism before sleep, like the countdown before a rocket launch. If the countdown doesn't complete properly, the launch doesn't happen, and all that fuel just sits there unused. When your core temperature doesn't drop the way it's supposed to, your deep sleep never fully ignites, and your fat-burning metabolism stays grounded all night. I had a patient named Margaret, 67 years old, from Scottsdale, Arizona. Her mother had developed type 2 diabetes in her late 60s, and Margaret had been watching her own fasting glucose trend upward for 3 years despite what I would describe as an excellent diet. She had also gained 9 pounds over 14 months without any obvious change in lifestyle. When I reviewed her sleep data, we use continuous monitoring in our practice, I could see she was barely reaching N3 deep sleep for more than 12 minutes per night. She was sleeping in a room at 74 degrees. We made one change. 1. She got a cooling mattress pad and set it to 67 degrees. Within 90 days, her average deep sleep had increased by 48 minutes per night. Her fasting glucose dropped 11 points. Her endocrinologist was floored. Margaret told me afterward, "I thought sleep was rest. I didn't know it was medicine." Here is exactly what to do. Set your bedroom thermostat to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit before you sleep. If that's not possible, a cooling mattress pad or even a fan directed at the foot of your bed will meaningfully assist. Give this 21 nights before you judge it. Your synergy tip for number 6. Pair the cooler room with blackout curtains and remove all LED standby lights, because light and temperature work together as environmental signals to your circadian clock. Combine them and you amplify the deep sleep trigger by up to 34%, according to research from the Karolinska Institute. The combination compounds in a way neither produces alone. Habit 5. Alcohol's hidden metabolic cost. Number 5 is something almost everyone dismisses as a personal choice rather than a metabolic event, and I understand that, but the data here is remarkable, and it surprised even me when I first dug into it. The habit is eliminating alcohol within 4 hours of bedtime, or eliminating it entirely on nights when metabolic recovery is the priority. After the age of 60, something called hepatic gluconeogenesis becomes increasingly sensitive to alcohol exposure during sleep. That is just a medical way of saying your liver, which is supposed to be carefully managing your blood glucose while you sleep, gets hijacked by the task of processing alcohol, and the result is blood sugar dysregulation, suppressed growth hormone secretion, and near total elimination of REM sleep architecture in the second half of the night. A 2020 study from Johns Hopkins University, published in Sleep Medicine Reviews, found that adults who consumed even one standard drink within 3 hours of sleep showed a 24% reduction in REM sleep duration. And REM sleep, which most people associate only with dreaming, is when your brain actively processes appetite hormones, specifically ghrelin and leptin. Compromise REM, and the next morning your hunger signals are chemically scrambled. 24% from one drink. Think of the liver during sleep like an air traffic controller. It can manage many planes simultaneously, balancing blood sugar, processing hormones, clearing metabolic waste. But pour alcohol into the system, and it declares an emergency. Every resource diverts to clearing the alcohol, and all the other planes, all that vital metabolic work, circle endlessly or get rerouted, arriving late and damaged. I had a patient named Robert, 61 years old, from Charleston, South Carolina. His father had passed from a heart attack at 64, and Robert had spent years trying to get his weight and his lipid panel under control. He ran 4 days a week. He ate very clean by most standards, but he had a nightly ritual: 2 glasses of red wine before bed, which he genuinely believed was heart healthy. His body fat percentage was stuck at 28% despite real effort. We tracked his sleep with a wearable device for 3 weeks with alcohol and 3 weeks without. His REM sleep increased by 41 minutes per night in the alcohol-free period. His testosterone levels rose measurably. After 6 months without evening alcohol, his body fat had dropped to 23.4%. His cardiologist was astonished. Robert told me, "I thought the wine was helping me relax. I had no idea it was robbing me every single night. If you choose to drink, finish your last drink no later than 4 hours before your target sleep time. Replace the wind-down ritual with non-caffeinated herbal tea, a short walk, or 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing. The ritual matters to your nervous system. You can swap the substance without losing the signal." Your synergy tip for number 5, combine eliminating evening alcohol with a consistent sleep onset time, within 30 minutes of the same time every night. The two together stabilize what's called your sleep pressure curve, and research from Oxford University shows this combination improves metabolic hormone regulation by up to 29% more than either change alone. Habit 4. Protein timing and the growth hormone. Window number 4 is something almost everyone gets wrong, including many clinicians I respect, because the conventional nutrition advice and the sleep science are pointing in opposite directions, and most people have never seen the two fields speak to each other. The research here is extraordinary. The habit is strategic protein timing around sleep, specifically consuming 25 to 40 grams of a slowly digested protein source roughly 60 to 90 minutes before bed. After the age of 65, something called anabolic resistance becomes clinically significant. Your muscle cells become less responsive to the anabolic signals that normally direct your body to preserve lean mass during the overnight fast. That is just a medical way of saying your body becomes far more aggressive at breaking down muscle for energy during sleep as you age. And because muscle is your primary metabolic engine, losing it means your resting metabolic rate falls and fat accumulates to fill the void. A 2021 study from Maastricht University, published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise, found that adults over 55 who consumed 40 grams of casein protein 30 minutes before sleep showed a 22% increase in overnight muscle protein synthesis and a statistically significant improvement in fat oxidation by morning compared to those who did not. 22%. Think of your overnight metabolism like a campfire that has to burn through the night. If you go to bed without giving it any slow-burning fuel, the fire eventually starts consuming the logs themselves. That's your muscle tissue. Give it the right fuel, slow-release protein, and it burns clean and steady all the way to dawn, leaving the logs intact and fat as the primary fuel source. I had a patient named Dorothy, 72 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Despite walking daily, she had been losing grip strength and gaining abdominal fat simultaneously, a pattern I recognize immediately as accelerated sarcopenic obesity. Dorothy's overnight fasting window was 14 hours, and she was consuming almost no protein at either end of it. We introduced a nightly casein protein shake, 35 grams, taken 75 minutes before bed. Within 3 months, her DEXA scan showed she had gained 1.1 kilograms of lean mass and lost 1.9 kilograms of fat mass simultaneously. Her primary care physician was floored. Dorothy said, "I thought eating before bed made you fat. I had no idea I was starving my own muscle every night." Choose cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, or a casein-based protein powder. Aim for 25 to 40 grams of protein, taken 60 to 90 minutes before your target sleep time. Avoid high glycemic carbohydrates alongside it, which blunt the growth hormone response. Your synergy tip for number 4, pair the pre-sleep protein with a brief 10-minute resistance exercise session earlier in the evening, not right before bed, but 3 to 4 hours prior. That primes muscle protein synthesis pathways, so the overnight protein hit is utilized far more efficiently. Research from the University of Toronto shows this combination improves overnight muscle retention by up to 31% compared to protein timing alone. If you're finding this valuable so far, this is a good moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I release evidence-based health content for people over 50 every single week, and your support is what makes that possible. Now let's get into the top 3. And these are where the science becomes genuinely extraordinary. Habit 3. Cortisol's midnight assault on your metabolism. Number 3 is something almost everyone underestimates because it happens while you are completely unconscious and has no obvious sensation attached to it. But the research here is truly extraordinary, and it may explain more about your weight than any conversation you have ever had with any physician about food. The habit is managing your psychological stress load before bed using structured decompression, specifically a 10 to 15-minute written brain dump and cognitive closure routine before sleep. After the age of 55, something called HPA axis dysregulation becomes significantly more common. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your body's central stress response system, becomes less efficient at shutting off at night, meaning cortisol levels, which should be near their lowest point between midnight and 2 a.m., remain inappropriately elevated. That is just a medical way of saying chronic, low-grade psychological stress keeps your fat storage hormones switched on while you sleep, and that process is almost entirely invisible to you. A 2022 study from Yale University School of Medicine, published in Psychoneuroendocrinology, found that adults over 50 who practiced a structured cognitive offloading protocol before bed, writing down outstanding tasks, worries, and next-day intentions for 15 minutes, showed a 37% reduction in overnight cortisol levels and measurable improvement in slow-wave sleep depth compared to controls. 37%. That's not a sleeping pill. That's not cortisol medication. That's a notebook and a pen. Think of unresolved thoughts at bedtime, like browser tabs left open on a laptop. You close the screen, but the processor is still running, still consuming power, still generating heat. Your brain operates the same way. If you go to bed with dozens of mental tabs open, your nervous system stays in a low-level emergency state all night. Cortisol stays elevated, and your body stays in fat storage mode. The brain dump closes the tabs. It tells your nervous system, these problems have been acknowledged. They can wait until morning. I had a patient named Carol, 58 years old, from Austin, Texas. She was a high-performing executive who came to me frustrated. She exercised 5 days a week, tracked her macros obsessively, and still could not lose the 22 pounds of abdominal fat she'd gained since turning 55. Her lab work showed a pattern I see regularly: elevated midnight cortisol, suppressed deep sleep, and downstream insulin resistance that no amount of dietary discipline was going to fix. We introduced a 12-minute nightly protocol: every unresolved thought, every tomorrow task, and 3 things she was grateful for. Nothing else changed. Within 90 days, her midnight cortisol had dropped by 29%. Her fasting insulin followed it down. She lost 11 pounds without changing a single macronutrient. Her sleep specialist was astonished. Carol told me, "I thought I was managing stress fine because I was functional. I had no idea my brain was sending alarm signals all night." Start with 10 minutes. A simple notebook, not a screen. Write everything unresolved: worries, tasks, decisions, anything the mind keeps returning to. Then write a clear intention for tomorrow morning. Close the notebook. This signals finality to the prefrontal cortex and begins the cortisol descent that makes deep sleep accessible. Your synergy tip for number 3, combine the written protocol with 5 minutes of slow, extended exhalation breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 8. This activates the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system simultaneously with the cognitive closure. Research from the University of California, San Francisco shows combining both drops cortisol by up to 43% more than either practice alone. The combination is genuinely synergistic. Habit 2. Light exposure and the circadian metabolic clock. Number 2 is where some of the most compelling science I have encountered in 25 years of research quietly lives. This is not widely understood. It is not talked about in mainstream medicine, and when I explain it to patients, the response is almost always the same. Why did nobody tell me this sooner? The habit is a strict 2-part light protocol: deliberate bright light exposure, ideally sunlight, within 30 minutes of waking, and complete elimination of blue-spectrum artificial light for 90 minutes before bed. After the age of 60, something called suprachiasmatic nucleus sensitivity deterioration becomes clinically meaningful. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is the master pacemaker of your circadian clock, the 24-hour biological timer that orchestrates not just sleep and wake cycles, but fat metabolism, insulin sensitivity, and hormonal secretion across every organ in your body. As it ages, it becomes harder to entrain, harder to set accurately, meaning that without deliberate light signals, your circadian clock begins to drift, and with it, your metabolic timing falls apart. That is just a medical way of saying that your body starts losing track of when to burn fat and when to store it. A 2023 study from Harvard Medical School, published in Nature Metabolism, found that adults over 55 who received 10 minutes of outdoor morning light within 30 minutes of waking and avoided artificial blue light for the final 90 minutes before sleep showed a 44% improvement in insulin sensitivity compared to controls, as measured by HOMA-IR across a 12-week period. 44%. Not from a drug, not from a dietary overhaul, from light. 44%. Think of your circadian clock like the master conductor of an orchestra. Every organ in your body, the liver, the pancreas, the adipose tissue, the brain, has its own internal clock, its own section of the orchestra. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is the conductor keeping them all in time. Light is the downbeat, the signal that starts everything moving together. Without that morning downbeat, the sections drift. The bass comes in when the strings should be playing. The metabolic result is chaos. Insulin released at the wrong time, fat oxidation suppressed when it should be active, glucose stored when it should be burned. I had a patient named James, 64 years old, from Minneapolis, Minnesota, a retired engineer who spent most mornings indoors with shades drawn and worked at a bright screen until 11 p.m. He had been diagnosed with prediabetes 2 years prior and had gained 17 pounds since retiring despite an active afternoon lifestyle. When we analyzed his circadian profile, his cortisol awakening response was essentially flat, a sign of profound circadian disruption. We changed 2 things only: 10 minutes of outdoor morning light by 7:30 a.m. and blue light blocking glasses from 9 p.m. onward. After 12 weeks, his HOMA-IR dropped 38%, his fasting glucose came down 14 points, and he lost 8 pounds without any caloric restriction. His endocrinologist was floored. James said, "I was an engineer for 40 years. I never thought light was a metabolic variable. Step outside within 30 minutes of waking. No sunglasses, no screen between you and the sky. Even on overcast days, outdoor light is 10 to 50 times brighter than indoor lighting. In the evening, switch overhead lighting to warm-toned bulbs and stop all screens 90 minutes before bed. If that's not possible, blue light blocking glasses with genuine amber lenses are an effective substitute." Your synergy tip for number 2, pair the morning light exposure with your first meal of the day, consumed within 60 minutes of waking. Light plus food delivered simultaneously gives your suprachiasmatic nucleus 2 concurrent time-of-day signals rather than 1, and research from the Salk Institute shows this dual entrainment improves circadian robustness by up to 51% compared to morning light alone. The effect on overnight fat oxidation is measurable within 2 weeks. Habit 1. Slow-wave sleep, the master switch. Number 1. This is it. This is the single most impactful sleep habit for fat loss and metabolic health after 50 that exists in the scientific literature. Everything else on this list supports it. Everything we have talked about tonight feeds into it. This is the master switch, and what the research has been quietly building toward for 2 decades is now impossible to ignore. The habit is protecting, prioritizing, and deliberately optimizing your slow-wave sleep, also called N3 deep sleep, by going to bed before 11 p.m., maintaining a completely consistent wake time, and creating what researchers call sleep pressure by avoiding naps after 1 p.m. After the age of 55, something called slow-wave sleep erosion becomes one of the most devastating and underappreciated aging phenomena occurring in the human body. Deep, slow-wave sleep is when your pituitary gland releases the majority of your daily growth hormone pulse, a hormone directly responsible for fat mobilization, lean mass preservation, cellular repair, and insulin sensitivity the following day. By age 65, most people have lost 60 to 80% of the slow-wave sleep they had at age 25. Not 10%, not 30%, 60 to 80%. And with every percentage point lost, the growth hormone pulse diminishes, the fat storage hormones gain dominance, and the body quietly, invisibly restructures itself toward obesity and metabolic disease. A landmark 2020 study from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, tracking 94,000 adults over 15 years, found that each 10% reduction in slow-wave sleep was associated with a 17% increase in visceral fat accumulation over the following 5 years, independent of total sleep duration, diet, and exercise. Independent. 17% per 10% reduction in deep sleep. The numbers compounded across that 15-year follow-up into what the authors described as a clinically catastrophic divergence between the highest and lowest slow-wave sleep groups. Think of slow-wave deep sleep like the overnight crew that comes into a factory after everyone goes home. The day shift, waking life, creates products, makes decisions, uses energy. But it also creates waste, leaves things disorganized, wears down the machinery. The overnight crew, deep sleep, cleans the floor, repairs the machines, restocks the materials, and readjusts every system for tomorrow. If the overnight crew doesn't show up or shows up for only 20 minutes instead of 2 hours, the factory doesn't collapse immediately, but it degrades. Day by day, year by year, the machines get worn, the stockroom gets depleted, and eventually the factory can no longer function the way it once could. That is your metabolism on insufficient deep sleep compounded across decades. I had a patient named Harold, 69 years old, from Denver, Colorado. He had been a genuinely fit man in his 50s and could not understand why, in the 5 years since retiring, he had gained 31 pounds without eating more or moving substantially less. His sleep study showed something striking. He was spending 7.5 hours in bed, but only 6 minutes per night in slow-wave sleep. 6 minutes. The national average for his age, itself devastatingly low, is around 20 to 25 minutes. Harold was at 6. His growth hormone secretion, measured via overnight urine collection, was essentially undetectable. We built a comprehensive slow-wave rescue protocol, consistent 10:15 p.m. bedtime, strict 6:30 a.m. wake time, regardless of weekends, no naps past noon, the temperature drop we discussed earlier, the brain dump, the morning light. At his 6-month follow-up, his polysomnography showed 48 minutes of slow-wave sleep per night. His morning IGF-1, a proxy for growth hormone output, had increased by 34%. He had lost 19 pounds without a single dietary intervention. His sleep physician said it was the most dramatic slow-wave sleep recovery she had seen in a patient his age. Harold told me, "I thought I was just getting old. I didn't know there was a switch. I just needed someone to show me where it was. Go to bed between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Wake at the same time every single day, including weekends, including holidays, including the mornings you don't want to. The consistency of the wake time is what anchors your circadian rhythm and builds the sleep pressure that drives you into deep sleep efficiently. Avoid naps after 1 p.m., which discharge that pressure prematurely. Stack every other habit on this list beneath this one, and this one becomes exponentially more powerful. Your synergy tip for number 1, pair the consistent sleep schedule with a brief hot shower or bath taken 60 to 90 minutes before bed. The subsequent drop in skin temperature after you step out accelerates your core cooling, the very mechanism we discussed at number 6, and research from the University of Texas at Austin shows this combination increases slow-wave sleep duration by up to 36% compared to schedule consistency alone. Every minute of additional deep sleep you recover represents a measurable improvement in your next-day fat metabolism. The effect is cumulative. It builds. All studies referenced throughout this video are linked in the description below, the journals, the institutions, the researchers. Go read them. Because what I need you to understand before this video ends is this. You are not too old for metabolic recovery. The science does not have an age limit. Harold was 69 when he recovered 42 minutes of deep sleep. Dorothy was 72 when she reversed her sarcopenic obesity. The biology does not care how long you have been doing something wrong. It responds to the correction. Here is what we covered today. Cool your room to 65 to 68 degrees. Stop alcohol 4 hours before bed. Eat 25 to 40 grams of slow protein 90 minutes before sleep. Write your mind empty before you close your eyes. Get morning sunlight within 30 minutes of waking and block artificial light 90 minutes before bed. And protect your deep sleep with a consistent schedule like your metabolic life depends on it. Because the research says it actually does. They cost almost nothing. They require no prescription, no insurance approval, no physician's referral, no bottle with a label, just decisions made in the hours before midnight that send your biology a fundamentally different set of instructions than the ones it has been receiving. Every single morning you get a fresh opportunity to begin. The overnight crew is waiting. Let them in. Now I have 2 questions for you in the comments. First, which of these 6 habits are you starting tonight? Tell me specifically, not which one sounds interesting, which one you are actually committing to. And second, when was the last time you woke up feeling genuinely rested? Not just not tired, but actually rested. I want to know your story. I read every single one.